Welcome back, everyone. Muslims can be very selective with their sources when defending their religion. Mention a problematic hadith, and they may just resort to the Quran. Mention a problematic verse in the Quran, and maybe they'll just resort to the hadith. Many times, the latter is the case, with the infamous wife-beating verse. As for those women whom you fear may be rebellious, admonish them, avoid them in bed, and strike them. Apologetics are apparent in some translations that add to the word of Allah, in parentheses, beat them lightly. Other less apologetic translations simply say scourge. And while we're on the topic, I'm sorry, I just can't resist sharing with you one of my top 10 most favorite quotes from any Muslim commentator ever. Maududi says, "But the fact is that there are certain women who do not mend their ways without a beating." Muslim feminists have attempted retranslations. Muslim apologists have attempted mental gymnastics. But alas, the verse says what it says. Husbands have the right, from the God of Islam himself, to discipline their wives by striking them. So, we have a problematic Quran verse. It's hadith to the rescue, right? After all, according to Muhammad's wife Aisha, Muhammad never struck a woman or a slave. Also, according to that very same wife, Muhammad struck her in the chest and caused her pain. Muslims want to present us with a complete, coherent portrait of Muhammad in the Hadith, without any contradiction, but the many volumes of Hadith simply do not permit it, and so the mental gymnastics begin again. Predictably, Muslim apologists will want to leave the Hadith where Muhammad didn't strike a woman intact, and tweak Aisha's words in the latter example to say that Muhammad didn't actually strike her, nor did he actually cause her pain. Meanwhile, the Quran allows men to strike their wives. So, in the end, Muslim apologists are trying to demonstrate Muhammad's virtue by showing us that he did not exercise his divinely ordained right to physically discipline his wife. But is this really hadith to the rescue? The apparent contradiction in the narrations I just showed you illustrates that a more comprehensive look at the hadith may be required before we come to a conclusion. But for now, let's ignore the report where Muhammad struck Aisha. Can Muslims point to the broader hadith corpus and say with honesty that Muhammad discouraged wife beating? Well, let's take a look. First, we encounter a poor woman who was beaten until her arm was broken. Apparently, this goes beyond the limits Muhammad had in mind, so Muhammad ordered a divorce. Curiously, the abusive former husband was still told to take what his ex-wife owed him. We don't read of the man being punished, nor of the woman receiving any sort of compensation of any form for her injury. So the man gets off really easy in this instance, and you'll see that that's a common theme throughout these hadith. Nevertheless, Muhammad did seem to put an implicit limit on beating your wife, namely, don't break any bones. So that's progress. Islam style. In this next hadith, Aisha says that Muslim men beat their wives worse than anyone else. The woman in this instance had been beaten quite severely. Muhammad, who seldom missed a chance to be a complete idiot, said that the woman couldn't divorce her abusive husband until she had sex with him. In the next hadith, a woman who was beaten came to Muhammad for protection. Muhammad, who seldom missed a chance to be a complete idiot, told the woman to say she was protected by Muhammad and to go back to her husband. Later, she returned. He didn't give me anything but more beatings. Muhammad, who seldom missed a chance to be a complete idiot, tore a piece of cloth from his shirt as evidence, then told the woman to go back to her husband and say she was extra double super protected by the Prophet of Islam. Now, I know what some of you are thinking. It's kind of the elephant in the room at this point, so let's just go ahead and get it out in the open. Muhammad gave this woman a little piece of his shirt, and the hadith compilers love telling us about Muhammad's sexual strength. He was so potent that he just couldn't keep the semen off of his clothes, and his child bride would have to scratch it off with her fingernails. It just makes you wonder if the piece of the shirt that he gave this abused woman had been scratched clean by his child bride first. If not, this woman who kept going back to see Muhammad would have returned to her husband with a piece of Muhammad's semen-stained clothes, which would be awkward. Where were we? Oh yeah. Muhammad, who seldom missed a chance to be a complete idiot, gave a piece of his hopefully clean garment to the abused woman and then told her to go back to her husband where, surprise, she was beaten even more. There's a lot to say about this hadith. To state the obvious, it makes Muhammad look weak, unjust, utterly incompetent, and there's just no other way to say it. Plain stupid. He doesn't summon the abusive husband, who repeatedly shows no regard for Muhammad's protection, which proved to be a joke. The man faced no consequences. The woman received nothing. In the end, Muhammad seems more personally offended than anything else. He has sinned against me. The woman still isn't safe, the man still isn't punished, and Muhammad missed several key opportunities to get this simple concept through his thick skull. Men shouldn't be allowed to beat their wives. It's not that difficult. Next up, Muhammad tells us the rights of a wife. Oh yeah, she is to be fed, clothed, and as an added bonus, she is not to be hit in the face. More progress, Islam style. This next hadith is weak according to some Islamic scholars and authentic according to others. When we read it, you'll know why. And of course, every Muslim watching this will want to immediately discard this hadith based on their hadith sciences, which is something like, if you don't like the hadith, just say that it's weak and then you don't have to think about it. Muhammad said, "No man shall be asked why he beats his wife." Wife beating is a private matter, you understand. It's a private matter between a man and his wife or wives. You think such a policy encourages or discourages wife beating? That's a real puzzler, isn't it? Next, we have a bonus at no extra charge from the life of Muhammad. You have rights over your wives, and they have rights over you. You remember those rights to be fed, clothed, and not hit in the face. You have the right that they should not defile your bed, and that they should not behave with open unseemliness. If they do, God allows you to put them in separate rooms and to beat them, but not with severity. The most Muslims can argue from these texts is that Muhammad restricted wife beating in some ways. Don't hit the face, don't break an arm, etc. And that's about it. On the other hand, there was effectively no protection for the women in these stories. Muhammad told abused women to return to their husbands. In one case, he required a woman to have sex with her abusive husband before she could get divorced. In this same report, one of Muhammad's wives said Muslim women were treated worse than any others, a strong condemnation of how Muslim men treated their wives. And those men who beat their wives a little too hard, nothing happened. In one instance, Muhammad just got mad, just an angry little coward, sending semen-stained clothing samples back with a battered woman, not willing to summon her husband to face justice. What a pathetic story. It's ridiculous. The Quran says wife beating is a right of the husband, and Muhammad's words and actions back it up. Personally, I don't think Muslims should appeal at all to the Hadith on this issue. Even in our very brief treatment of these sources, we've seen that they paint a horrifically unflattering portrait of Muhammad. Then again, it's kind of hard to make domestic violence look good, isn't it? Thanks so much for watching. I'll see you next time.